They found his teeth before they found his name. Night pressed down on the alley, choking out hope with cold mist that clung to trash cans and brick walls. A single gunshot fractured the silence, echoing like a final verdict in a city with no forgiveness. Michael Russo, 36, Italian-American, a man known to the shadows but never to the light, lay face down, mouth frozen in a snarl, blood seeping across broken pavement. Rats scattered, frightened by the sudden violence. Someone whispered, "He was supposed to be untouchable." Detective Carter said, "No one's untouchable, not tonight." In the blacked-out rear window of a parked car, a pale hand let the pistol fall. Rain began, slow and steady, washing away footprints, erasing any mercy from the scene. A distant siren wailed, but nobody ran. The city's heart kept beating, indifferent. Maria Russo, his sister, would wake soon to a silent phone. Somewhere a boss crossed Michael's name from a ledger, pen-scratching finality. The bullet didn't just end a man. It tore open a secret that would change everything. As dawn threatened, the only thing left of Michael Russo was the cold echo of betrayal. Nobody spoke his name, but everyone felt the tremor. The city never grieves, not for men like Michael Russo. His body cooling on the alley floor was just another line in the morning report, a blip in the endless night of betrayals. Maria Russo woke to the hush of a dead phone, her instinct screaming before her mind even caught up. She sat up, shadows crowding her walls, heart racing with dread that seeped deep, the kind only family secrets breed. Detective Carter's boots splashed through blood and water, his eyes finding nothing but silence and the echo of old deaths. In the precinct, whispers snaked between desks. Russo finally crossed the wrong man, an officer muttered. Another said, "That's not a hit, that's a message." Maria dressed with shaking hands, her world collapsing before the sun could rise. In a penthouse suite across the city, the boss poured whiskey, eyes glassy as he considered his thinning empire. Every chess piece was moving, but no one knew who had tipped the board. As city lights bled into gray dawn, Michael Russo's fate became more than just a murder. It was the spark that would ignite a war no one could control. Detective Carter stood in the alley, every muscle tense, the metallic scent of blood mixing with rain. He studied the body, cataloging the violence, the single shot, the angle, the deliberate exposure. Carter said, "Whoever did this wanted us to know." His partner Ramirez, 32, Hispanic male, nodded, his voice low. They wanted everyone to know. Carter's gaze caught the glint of a broken necklace beside Michael's hand, a small crucifix, bent but defiant. "Family will come looking," Carter said, "and they'll want blood." Thunder grumbled overhead as Carter's gloved fingers bagged evidence. The city was a living thing, Carter thought, always hungry, always ready to feed on new grief. He whispered, "This isn't over, not by a long shot." Sirens faded, the alley emptied, but the story had already begun its march. In every bar and backroom the word spread. Michael Russo was dead. No one would sleep easy tonight, least of all Detective Carter. Inside a darkened office, the mob boss stared at Michael's file, every word a bitter memory. He flicked ashes into a cut crystal ashtray, the smoke swirling around heavy drapes and expensive silence. Vincent Moretti, 58, Italian-American. Thick-set, gray at the temples. Pinstripe suit rumpled from a sleepless night. He said, "Loyalty isn't a bulletproof vest." His consigliere, Angela DeSantis, 43, Italian-American, stood by the window, arms folded, face unreadable. "The other families will move," she said. Michael was a warning. "We need to hit back." Moretti's hand shook as he poured bourbon, knuckles white. "Find out who sent the message," he said. "And make sure they get one in return." Outside, the city pulsed, oblivious to the deal about to be struck. In the office lamplight, Michael's photo stared back, his eyes daring, his secrets buried with him. War was coming, and everyone in the room could taste it. As dawn crept higher, Michael's murder became city legend. Street kids whispered about the body in the alley, mothers hustled their children away from sirens, and cab drivers shook their heads at the blood in the gutters. In a tiny kitchen, Maria Russo gripped a mug, hands trembling. She remembered Michael as a boy, laughing, fearless, the first to fight for her. Now she tasted copper and grief. On the street, Carter lit a cigarette, exhaling into the growing light. He watched the neighborhood stir, sensing that beneath every locked door was another secret, another lie. At the city's edge, Vincent Moretti's men loaded guns, faces tight with purpose. Every phone call, every glance, every silence became a weapon. The balance of power, once a silent agreement, now teetered on the edge of war. By the time sunlight spilled fully over the city, Michael Russo's death had changed everything. No one was safe. Michael Russo's murder hung over the city like a bruise no one could touch. Maria moved through the apartment, grief pressing into her every step, each photograph on the wall, a reminder of what she'd lost. She paused before the mirror, forcing herself to look. "You have to be strong now," she whispered, voice trembling but defiant. Memories slammed into her, their mother's hands scrubbing dishes, Michael's laughter echoing through childhood, the last argument by the stoop. She pressed her forehead to cold glass, eyes squeezed shut against the tears. The city outside refused to slow down, horns blaring, sirens wailing, life rolling over death as if it never mattered. Maria reached for her brother's jacket, still draped on the chair, and pulled it close. In its lining, she found a note scribbled in Michael's hurried hand. "Trust nobody." Her breath caught. Even gone, he was still protecting her. She wrapped herself in the jacket, bracing for a storm she could already feel coming, a war that would demand more from her than she'd ever given before. Detective Carter's office was a fortress of old case files and stale coffee. He sat hunched at his desk, 45, black eyes rimmed red, tracing connections on a battered corkboard. Each pin was a life, a lie, or a debt. Ramirez entered, his voice barely a whisper. "The brass want this closed." Carter didn't look up. "They want a scapegoat, not justice." The two men shared a silence heavy with the weight of their own scars. Carter pressed a photo of Michael to the board, right beside a dozen unsolved cases. "This wasn't a random hit," Carter said, voice flat. "There's history here. Old blood, old wounds." Ramirez nodded, eyes scanning the threads. "Someone's pulling strings." Carter's fist clenched. "And we're dancing for them like always." He stared out the window at the city waking up, knowing every answer they found would just lead to more questions, and every truth would come at a price he wasn't sure he could pay. Maria stepped into the church, footsteps echoing off marble floors. The air was thick with candle smoke and whispered prayers. She moved to a pew, folding her hands, head bowed low. Father Tommaso, 60, Italian-American, white hair, gentle eyes, approached quietly. "I'm sorry, Maria," he said, his voice heavy with real sorrow. She struggled to meet his gaze. "He didn't deserve this." Father Tommaso said, "No one does, but the streets take what they want." Maria clenched her fists. "I need answers, Father. I need to know who did this." He nodded, the weight of confession pressing between them. Secrets have a way of surfacing when the blood dries. She felt anger burning through her sadness, a new strength building. "I won't let Michael's death be just another sin forgotten." Father Tommaso placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Be careful. Vengeance is a road with no way back." Maria's eyes hardened. "Neither is grief." In a dark bar crowded with ghosts and gangsters, Vincent Moretti nursed a glass of whiskey, shoulders hunched beneath the weight of every secret he ever buried. The air was thick with cigar smoke and tension, low jazz grumbling from a jukebox in the corner. Angela DeSantis slid into the booth, her eyes scanning the room for threats. "Words spreading fast," she said, voice cool. Vincent's jaw tightened. "Let them talk. Fear is as good as a bullet." Angela leaned in. "The O'Shea crew's moving on our territory." Russo's death changed the math. Vincent swirled his drink, the ice clinking like distant gunshots. "Michael was a warning shot," he said, but they'll learn I never miss twice." Angela smirked, all steel and calculation. "Do we strike first?" Vincent's eyes narrowed, voice low as a prayer. "We strike last. And hardest." The deal was set. War, inevitable and bloody, had found its rhythm. On the city's edge in a crumbling playground, Michael's old friend Johnny Greco, 37, Italian-American, waited beneath a rusted swing set. The wind rattled chains and scattered newspapers like warnings. Johnny's eyes were red for more than the cold. He clutched a photo of him and Michael as kids, laughing, arms thrown around each other, untouchable then. A figure emerged from the shadows. Maria. She moved with determination, grief sharpening her features. Johnny said, "He never saw it coming, did he?" Maria shook her head, pain etched in every line. "I need to know, Johnny, who hated him enough to do this." Johnny's jaw worked, fighting back tears. Everyone loved Michael until they owed him. He pressed the photo into her hand. "Don't become like us. There's no coming back." Maria closed her fist around the memory, but in her eyes, a storm gathered. The past was no longer safe. Tension ripped through the city like exposed wire. The O'Shea crew moved on Russo turf, graffiti blooming on brick and alley. Maria walked those streets, unafraid, her brother's memory fueling every step. At the corner, two men eyed her, strangers, dangerous, hands hidden in pockets. She ignored them, pressing forward. From a rooftop, Johnny Greco watched, his nerves shredded. He muttered, "You're crazy, Maria." She didn't flinch as one man called out, "You lost, sweetheart." Maria's glare cut cold. "Go back to your hole." The men laughed, menace sharp in their eyes, but she never broke stride. Word of her defiance rippled through the neighborhood, old loyalties stirring. Inside a nearby deli, Carter and Ramirez met with an informant, tension snapping between every word. "O'Shea's boys are making moves," the snitch said. Carter said, "Tell me something I don't know." Outside, the city felt like a match about to be struck. Maria slipped away into the shadows, her resolve unbreakable. The war for Michael's name, only just beginning. Detective Carter felt the city tightening around him. He studied the precinct's whiteboard, strings of colored yarn looping between faces. Michael, O'Shea, Moretti, Maria. Ramirez leaned close, voice taut. "We're losing control." Carter's jaw clenched. "We never had it." The chief stormed in, angry and exhausted. "Keep the lid on this. No headlines, no bodies." Carter said nothing. He knew bodies would come, headlines too. He stared at Maria's photo, wondering if she would survive what was coming. Ramirez said, "You can't save everyone." Carter whispered, "Doesn't mean I stop trying." Outside the window, patrol cars flashed red and blue, slicing through rain-slicked darkness. Every decision weighed heavy. Carter called Maria, warning in his voice. "Don't make yourself a target." She replied, too late. As the call ended, Carter's gut twisted. He knew something had shifted. The city was choosing sides, and nobody could hide from the fallout. In the heart of Little Italy, Vincent Moretti assembled his crew in a smoke-filled back room. Old faces, young blood, all hungry for respect or revenge. Moretti's fist slammed the table. "They killed one of ours. We answer in kind." Angela DeSantis, calculating cool, said, "The O'Shea crew's expecting a fight. Give them something unexpected." Moretti's eyes blazed. "What do you suggest?" Angela replied, "Hurt their money, hit their pride." The men murmured, uncertain but eager. Outside, the city pulsed with the threat of violence. Inside, Moretti's decision weighed like a loaded gun. He barked orders, names, places, timing, every word sharpening the blade. Angela's gaze met his. "This ends only one way." Moretti smirked, "Maybe, but it ends my way." The crew rose, determination and fear tangled in every movement. In the city's underbelly a new plan was born, and everyone would bleed for it. Night deepened, and Johnny Greco waited in the shadow of an abandoned warehouse, pulse pounding. He clutched a burner phone, every muscle tight. Maria's voice echoed in his mind. "You owe Michael." A car pulled up, headlights slicing through fog. O'Shea's Lieutenant Connor Doyle, 30, Irish-American, stepped out, sharp suit hiding rough edges. Johnny swallowed his fear, forcing his voice steady. "You're pushing too far." Connor grinned, wolfish. "Your friends had their turn. Now it's ours." Johnny said, "Michael was good to you once." Connor's smile faded. "Loyalty's dead." Tension sparked, both men frozen, every word another threat. "This ends ugly if you push," Johnny said. Connor shrugged. "It's already ugly." Engines revved as backup arrived. Johnny realized he was outnumbered, but not out of hope. Somewhere, Michael's memory gave him courage. He raised his chin, refusing to break. The lines had been drawn. By sunrise, violence had torn the city's seams. A warehouse burned, flames licking sky, sirens screaming in the distance. Maria watched from across the river, jaw set, grief turning to cold resolve. She held Michael's jacket tighter, tears dried, heart armored. In the chaos, Carter and Ramirez arrived, radio crackling with news of another body. Carter's eyes were hot. "It's starting," he said. Ramirez nodded. "It won't end with them." Maria called Johnny. "Are you alive?" Johnny, voice raw, answered, "Barely. But I've got names." Maria said, "Meet me tonight. We end this." Her words cut sharp as steel. No room left for doubt. Across the city, Vincent Moretti loaded a pistol, Angela at his side, the old world ready for war. The city bled beneath neon lights, the cost of loyalty written in every shadow. No one would escape untouched. Maria Russo stalked through the midnight haze, every step a dare. She met Johnny in a shadowed alley, fear stamped on his face. He whispered, "You sure about this?" Maria's eyes, ringed with exhaustion, blazed with purpose. "It ends tonight." Johnny glanced around, voice shaking. "O'Shea's crew is watching. They know you're coming." Maria's lips twisted in a bitter smile. "Let them." A figure emerged from the darkness, Angela DeSantis, cold calculation in her every move. "We're not alone," Angela said. Maria tensed, hand inching toward her pocket. Angela continued, "Vincent sent me. He thinks you should walk away." Maria snapped, "That's not his call." Angela's gaze was steel. "Family doesn't mean safe." Maria shot back, "Family means blood." Tension crackled in the silence. Johnny hissed, "Someone's listening." Footsteps echoed sharp and quick, a warning or a trap. Maria's breath steadied. She would face what came, and she would not flinch no matter who waited in the dark. Inside Vincent Moretti's penthouse, storm winds rattled the window panes. Vincent, fists clenched, watched the city writhe below. He barked into the phone, "You said she'd listen." Angela replied, voice cool, "She's not a soldier, Vincent. She's the war." Vincent's face darkened. "If Maria exposes us, the whole empire falls." Angela's answer was ice. "Then trust her to finish what Michael started." Vincent hurled his whiskey glass against the wall, amber streaking like old blood. He muttered, "This family's held together by fear, fear and secrets." Rain hammered the glass as he slumped into a chair, head in hands. The penthouse lights flickered, thunder shaking the sky. On the table, Michael's obituary lay open, lines underlined in red. Vincent growled, "I won't lose everything for a dead man's grudge." Lightning split the city skyline, reflecting off his haunted eyes. The balance of power, once sacred, was shattering by the hour. Detective Carter's phone buzzed at 3 a.m. He snapped awake, tension flooding his veins. "Maria." Her voice was iron. "Meet me at the docks." Carter grabbed his badge and gun, rain lashing his windshield as he sped through deserted streets. He arrived to find Maria waiting beneath a rusted crane, soaked but unbowed. Carter said, "You shouldn't be here." Maria replied, Neither should you. Shadows shifted, a warning. Carter said, if you know who did it, you need to tell me. Maria's stare was cold fire. Will you protect me? Or will you bury the truth? Carter hesitated, haunted by the lines he'd already crossed. What do you want? Maria whispered, justice. Carter said, that costs more than you know. She shrugged, unafraid. I've already paid. A distant horn blared. Both knew they stood on a knife's edge, one misstep, and the city would eat them both alive. In a backroom poker den, Connor Doyle, 30, Irish-American, sat flanked by O'Shea's lieutenants, counting chips and enemies. He leaned forward, voice low. Russo's girl is making waves. Boss says we silence her. A young soldier paled. She's got friends. Connor sneered, friends die easy. He threw a photo of Maria onto the table, her face circled in red. Tonight, we settle debts. Another man asked, and the cops? Connor's eyes glittered. Cops bleed too. Laughter tumbled out, cruel and certain. Across the city, a hitman checked his weapon, Maria's address scrawled on a scrap of paper. Connor watched the storm outside, fingers drumming the table. She wants a war, he murmured. Let's give her a funeral. The game resumed, but everyone in the room knew the stakes had never been higher. The devil was loose, and no one would walk away clean. Thunder crashed as Maria raced up her apartment stairs, heart hammering. She burst inside to find the door ajar, rain seeping in. The apartment was trashed, drawers pulled, pictures smashed. Maria gripped Michael's jacket tighter, every instinct screaming. A shadow moved in the hall. She spun, raising a kitchen knife. The hitman stepped into the light, face cold, gun leveled. Maria said, you picked the wrong house. The hitman smirked, orders are orders. Suddenly Johnny crashed through the back door, tackling the gunman. The shot went wild, shattering glass. Maria lunged, slashing. Blood splattered. The fight was brutal, fast, rage, and desperation. Johnny subdued the hitman, breath ragged. We have to go, now. Maria nodded, adrenaline masking terror. Outside, sirens howled closer. She looked at Johnny, then at Michael's jacket. The past was bleeding into the present, and she would not run anymore. The night dripped with vengeance. Maria and Johnny ran through empty streets, adrenaline masking every ache. Police lights flashed far behind, distant but coming. Johnny's voice was raw. Where now? Maria stared ahead, jaw clenched. We end this. She gripped Michael's jacket and led Johnny to a boarded-up warehouse where the city's old bones showed, peeling paint, rusty beams, shadows stretching forever. Inside, Vincent Moretti waited, suit wrinkled, eyes sleepless. Angela stood nearby, hand in her coat. Maria faced Vincent, her voice cold. You set Michael up. Vincent didn't blink. He chose the wrong side. Johnny's fists clenched, hatred radiating. Angela's stare was unreadable. Maria spat, he was your blood. Vincent's face hardened. Blood means nothing when loyalty's gone. Maria stepped forward, fire in her eyes. Tonight, it means everything. The warehouse was silent, but for thunder and heartbeats, all debts about to be paid in blood or fire. The warehouse echoed with old secrets. Maria's voice was steady, every word slicing the air. You killed Michael because you were scared. Vincent snapped, he was a traitor. Angela cut in, voice sharp. Enough. This ends now. Outside, thunder rumbled as Carter and Ramirez crept toward the entrance, guns drawn. Carter whispered, don't shoot unless you have to. Inside, Johnny drew his own weapon, trembling. You'll pay for Michael. Vincent smiled coldly. You don't have the guts. Maria raised the jacket, the hidden note falling at Vincent's feet. His eyes widened, realizing the truth too late. Angela pulled her gun, leveling it at Vincent. You lied to all of us. For a heartbeat, everyone froze, weapons aimed, trust shattered. Maria's voice was a whisper and a threat. No more lies. Tonight, the truth kills. Lightning split the sky, shadows dancing across every face. Gunfire erupted, violent, deafening. Carter and Ramirez burst in, shouting, "Drop your weapons!" Angela fired first, bullet grazing Vincent's shoulder. Maria dove, dragging Johnny behind crates. Vincent roared in pain, clutching his wound, gun wavering toward Angela. Johnny's shot rang out, missing by inches. Carter tackled Vincent, forcing the weapon free. Maria screamed, "No more blood!" Rain pounded the leaking roof, mixing with the scent of smoke and fear. Angela slid to her knees, gun falling from shaking hands. "I believed you, Vincent." He spat blood, glaring up at Carter. "This was my city." Carter cuffed him, voice cold. "Not anymore." Maria's heart thundered in her chest, the war spinning in slow motion. Ramirez called for backup as Angela wept silently. The warehouse pulsed with sirens and loss. The end of an era sealed by violence. Outside the warehouse, dawn smeared the sky with bruised purple and gold. Police lights strobed, officers swarming the scene. Carter led Vincent, handcuffed and bleeding, to a squad car. Vincent's eyes met Maria's, full of fury, regret, and something broken. Maria stood with Johnny, Michael's jacket around her shoulders, breath shaking. Angela was led away, her face numb with betrayal. Ramirez said quietly, "It's over." Maria shook her head, voice hollow. "Nothing's over." She looked at Carter, gratitude flickering. "Thank you." Carter nodded. "Keep your head down." Maria's hands trembled, loss and relief swirling. The city buzzed beyond police lines, hungry for new gossip, blind to the cost. As paramedics loaded wounded into ambulances, Johnny squeezed Maria's hand. "You did it." Maria looked to the rising sun, her brother's ghost close, and whispered, "I survived." Price, though, would haunt her forever. The city was quiet, but the wounds remained. Maria walked alone through empty streets, sunrise painting gold across ruined storefronts. Michael's jacket was heavy on her shoulders, a burden and a shield. She remembered his laugh, his warnings, and the way the world changed after a single bullet. The war was over, but peace felt hollow. She passed a bakery, old women gossiping in Italian, their eyes soft with pity. Maria met their gazes, refusing to flinch. Detective Carter watched from his car, nodding once before disappearing into the city's heartbeat. Maria stopped at the church, lighting a candle for Michael. "I did what I had to," she whispered. She left the jacket on the pew, a tribute and a promise. The sun climbed higher, and Maria walked into its warmth, scarred, unbowed, carrying her brother's memory in every step. The streets would remember her name. The aftermath left the city raw and silent. Maria sat at Michael's old kitchen table, hands wrapped around a chipped mug, daylight bleeding across peeling wallpaper. Every sound echoed. The faucet drip, a distant car horn, the creak of the chair as she leaned back. Grief hung heavy, but there was a strange stillness now. Johnny came in quietly, bruised, exhausted. He set a brown envelope on the table. Testimony. Everything Michael kept on Moretti. Maria stared at it, heart pounding. "This will put them away." Johnny nodded, a tremor in his voice. "Or bury us both." Maria's eyes burned. Michael died for this. Outside, life ticked on, children's laughter drifting through the cracked window, jarring and beautiful. Maria's fingers brushed the envelope. For a moment, she let herself feel it all. The loss, the fear, the price. She whispered, "He trusted me." Johnny sat beside her, the city's wounds reflected in his eyes. For the first time, Maria felt hope and danger in equal measure. Detective Carter reviewed Maria's file under the buzzing fluorescent lights of the precinct, his tie askew, eyes red-rimmed with sleeplessness. Across his desk, Ramirez placed coffee, sighing. "You trust her?" Carter said. "She survived what we couldn't." Ramirez's smile was grim. "She burned down half the city." Carter shrugged, shuffling papers. Someone had to. We look the other way. This ends in another body bag. He gazed at the window, rain streaking glass, police radios murmuring in the background. She's giving us everything on Moretti. Ramirez said. That's enough to end it? Carter answered. It's enough to start something new. A bulletin came over the radio. Warrants issued, arrests imminent. Carter's jaw clenched. It never ends, does it? Ramirez smiled, tired. It ends for some. Carter watched the city beyond the glass, wondering who would pay next, and who would finally walk away clean. Vincent Moretti sat in a holding cell, suit rumpled, cuffed hands shaking as dawn leaked through iron bars. He muttered curses at the cracked floor, haunted by ghosts of loyalty and betrayal. Across the corridor, Angela DeSantis pressed her forehead to cold concrete, silent tears tracking down her face. Vincent's lawyer arrived, but Vincent barely listened. He'd lost his empire, his fear, his family. It was supposed to last forever, he whispered. Angela, hollow-eyed, stared at her reflection in the steel door. We killed for nothing. The guard's boots echoed down the hall, the finality of consequence settling over both. Angela's thoughts swirled with regret, memories of loyalty gone sour. Vincent slumped on the cot, gaze empty, as if waiting for someone who would never come. In that cell, power and pride shriveled, replaced by silence and the long, bitter price of ambition. In the ruins of a corner bar, Maria and Johnny shared a quiet drink, the wreckage of the war visible in boarded windows and scorch marks. The jukebox was silent, its coin slot jammed. Johnny raised his glass, voice raw. To Michael? Maria's smile was small, bittersweet. He never gave up. They sat in silence, the kind that comes after too much loss. Johnny asked, "What now?" Maria stared at the cracked mirror behind the bar. "We start again. We try to be better than what made us." Sunlight spilled through broken blinds, painting gold stripes across dust and scars. Johnny gripped her hand, a silent promise. Maria squeezed back, eyes shining but strong. In that battered sanctuary, they found something close to peace, not forgiveness, but the will to keep living, to remember and move forward, one scar at a time. Even as justice circled the city, life moved in small, stubborn ways. Maria visited Michael's grave beneath a cloud-streaked sky, the grass still scarred from fresh shovels. She knelt, placing a single rose beside his name. "I did what you asked," she whispered. Wind tugged at her hair, sunlight breaking through gray. Maria's eyes were clear, no longer haunted, only changed. She traced the headstone, lips pressed tight, letting her brother's memory settle where it belonged. From the street, Johnny watched, hands buried in his pockets, keeping vigil without a word. As Maria rose and turned away, she carried something new, a quiet strength, a resolve sharpened by everything she'd lost. The city was still dangerous, but she walked away from the grave lighter, ready to face whatever silence remained, her promise kept in every step. A city remembers even what it refuses to say. Maria Russo drifted through early morning fog, footsteps echoing off empty sidewalks. A dog barked somewhere far, the world half asleep, half wary. She moved with new quietness, scars invisible but deep. Passing Michael's old haunts, bodega, stoop, church door, she felt the city watching, unsure if she was hero or warning. At every corner, echoes of the war rattled in the metal gates and faded graffiti. Maria slipped her hand into her pocket, touching the last note Michael wrote, worn paper soft from worry and hope. She paused outside a bakery, inhaling warm bread, nostalgia rising in her throat. People looked at her differently now, a mixture of fear, respect, and something like forgiveness. She kept walking, head high. The ghosts were silent, but the city's story pressed on, and Maria, changed forever, was now part of its legend. Detective Carter leaned against his battered sedan, watching the city breathe. Morning painted the skyline gold, erasing some shadows but never all. Carter lit a cigarette, letting smoke curl through broken window glass. He thought of Maria, of all the cases that left scars he'd never show. Ramirez strolled up, coffee in hand, offering a tired smile. "It's over." Carter shook his head, voice rough. "Nothing's ever over in this town." Ramirez leaned on the hood beside him. They watched children racing to school, sirens somewhere far away. Carter said, "We do our jobs. Try to keep the pieces from cutting too deep." He flicked ash into the gutter, regret and hope balanced in his eyes. The city felt less heavy for a moment, still dangerous but alive. In their silence an understanding grew. They couldn't fix everything, but they could endure, and sometimes that was enough. Johnny Greco wandered the park where he and Michael once dreamed of better lives, swings squeaking in the breeze. The playground was empty, except for Johnny's memories. He sat on a worn bench, hands folded, eyes tracking a pair of sparrows squabbling in the dust. He took the childhood photo from his wallet, edges worn, faces frozen in laughter before the world's weight settled. Johnny whispered, "We survived, Mike. Somehow." For the first time, he let himself grieve. Real, hot tears spilling for a brother lost and a city changed. A breeze lifted the photo. He caught it, holding on tight. Sunlight filtered through trees, dappling his face, hope mingling with sorrow. Johnny wiped his eyes and stood, taller now, if not happier. He looked to the city skyline, the future uncertain but finally his own to choose. In a cold jail cell, Vincent Moretti stared at the ceiling, hands steepled, suit rumpled from nights with no sleep. Time dragged differently there, regret sinking deeper than bars. He replayed every betrayal, every order, the faces of those who'd followed him and fallen. Across the corridor, Angela DeSantis scrawled in a battered notebook, her hands trembling. She wrote names, apologies, ghosts that would haunt her forever. A guard walked past, keys jangling, indifferent. Vincent closed his eyes, mouth twisting in something like a prayer or curse. He realized his empire had bought nothing but silence, no family, no future, just echoes of violence in concrete and steel. The world would keep turning, with or without him. Angela looked up, tears drying, and nodded at Vincent through the bars. Forgiveness was out of reach, but the truth had been spoken. Maria returned to the church at sunset, the city washed in amber and shadow. She lit a candle for Michael, letting the flame's warmth soften the ache in her chest. The pews were empty, echoes of old prayers swirling in golden dust. Maria sat quietly, head bowed, letting every memory settle. Her brother's laughter, their fights, the sound of his name in the dark. She stood, leaving Michael's final note folded beneath the candle, a promise kept and a past released. The city outside grew quiet, dusk settling over old stone and new beginnings. Maria stepped into the fading light, the world no longer weighing her down. There was no peace for ghosts, but there was room now for the living. Her footsteps echoed on the church steps, carrying her forward, wounded, strong, unforgettable. The city would never forget her, or the price that had been paid for its silence.